All right, before we talk about the trip to Oregon this week, you guys were in San Diego. I know I talked to you last week. It was going to be a huge event. I mean, a lot of athletes, Division I, athletes, everybody in San Diego competing, good competition. Just kind of your thoughts and just after taking part in that down that coming back.
It was a remarkable trip for sure. Just the sheer magnitude of the regatta within itself, just trying to keep the students focused for why they were there, and just the number of athletes and boats that are the scene. And we kind of talked about rowing up at the Division I level and what that meant to race Texas and Cal, not your usual competition in Division II, rowing at least. And we felt like we had done a pretty good job of preparing them. And when you load the starting line, there's stake boats, and so they load from lane 1 out, and we were in lane number 6 in the 2B8. And so they're sitting there, they're waiting for the teams to load, and Texas rode by, and they just said, Coach, you did say we all put our pants on the same way, but we were just how not to be overwhelmed by that. I think we were pleased and disappointed simultaneously. There were in the 2B8 there were 3 heats, and we were in the only heat with 7 boats, and we were the only boat eliminated. And I think we had some fairly competitive times with some of the crews in the other heats that matriculated to the third final, and we missed that opportunity. And it's a little confusing because when we looked at finals on Sunday, there were 8 boats in some finals. So it was a mystery just in how the placing for certain events sent you places. So I think that was a little bittersweet. Women's varsity fours have just made their way back into the Crew Classic as a result of NC2A ranking, and the competition was very steep. UC San Diego has a fast 4. They matriculated onto the final, and there were a number of boats that were eliminated. And so, to be done in the morning session, I think was disappointing. We all had hopes that we would have that opportunity to matriculate. We raced. Varsity 8 was the only boat to move on from first round competition, and it was a little windy, and the course is 8 lanes, very big course, and there were only 6 boats in our heat, and there are certain points, and they had talked about this at the pre-regatta meeting, that if you suddenly feel like you need to make a 90-degree turn, you've probably gotten yourself off track. So the race course is out in front of you, but if the light catches it a certain way, then it looks like it takes off 90 degrees. So we were tied for 3rd place, and Coxon made that 90-degree turn from lane 6 to lane 8, crossing over buoy lines, and the ladies just said that it was really hard not to notice the lane change. And of course, there are commentators calling out what's happening. There's a jumbotron, so you get to see it in color, and it was pretty harsh. And whether it cost us the opportunity to go on to petite final, we will not know, but we did have the opportunity to move on to the 3rd final, as did UCSD from the prior heat. So I think that was a windfall for us. And of course, when they came in, and they were all a little bit upset, I think, about the shift change, and being Coxon is not an easy thing to do. And so we just kind of talked about, we always seem to come up with some pretty good excuses when we can't get it done. Her job is to steer, their job is to pull, push, and perform. So we went out in the afternoon session, and we got lane number 1. That's a really big deal, because as the winds start to come up, it is a lane that is slightly more protected, and it was definitely a side wind in the tide. In the early morning sessions, we had been racing against the tide, and now we're racing with the tide. This big wind coming off the side, and it truly was the only race that I watched on the Jumbotron. You see them not, it's like sitting from here to you, and they took off on the start and they just never looked back. So it was the performance that we've been at least looking for since we really had that race in Sacramento on March the 12th that has just kind of stuck with us. And we've gone out a few times since then, and we've had some hit or miss pieces, and so I think it felt good. They felt confident. Was it flawless? Probably not, but I think that's what they really needed, was to have a good solid row in conditions that weren't necessarily favorable. So I think, coming away with finishing up on Saturday and not matriculating to Sunday was a little bit of a disappointment, but not after we took that 14-hour bus trip home early on Sunday morning, which, gave us an opportunity to get back at a reasonable hour. So, yeah, that about wraps up Crew Classic.
You guys are on the road this week after competing in Humboldt Bay and down in San Diego at the Covered Bridge. It's not, obviously won't be in a bay, or talk about the conditions, just the water, and how it's going to be different.
It's Covered Bridges in Dexter and Lowell. It sits between two dams, and it started out as a one-lane course, and over the course of 10 years, it's 8 lanes fully buoyed. And we have 2 sessions for each boat. So first race of the day, varsity 8 lanes across. And we'll see some of the same people that we raced with at San Diego. And we'll also face off with Western Washington, which will be our first face off with them. They raced UCSD a week ago, same weekend as Blue Heron Regatta, and they beat San Diego by I think it was 7 seconds, I believe. And so, I think this will be very telling for us, just in the sense of 8 lanes, and there are a lot of Division I worthy programs. Western has faced off with a number of those Division I programs, so they already have a good idea of where they stand. So I think we'll have our work cut out for us this weekend, just really trying to not only have that same performance that we had in the third final at San Diego, but trying to do it twice. And so I think, I'm really excited about the format. Not quite as exciting as, say, softball, 8 games in 4 days. We just do 2 races in about 4 to 5 hours. So we'll face off with them first off. We have 1 event entered. We have 1 boat entered in every single event, and it'll be maybe every 10 to 15 minutes we'll be launching another boat, and it'll start at 7 o'clock in the morning and go until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I think in that sense, it should be a pretty exciting day. The conditions can be pretty epic there, but they can also be pretty treacherous as well. Any winds are coming up, they come across that lake, and it's been a long time since we've sunk a boat, and so we're hoping that this weekend is really nice. Wednesday, Thursday, it's supposed to be 80 degrees, then cooling off towards the weekend. And early races generally, the only thing that you really have to battle with at Dexter Lake is probably fog in the morning and winds in the afternoon. But it should be a really good experience for us, and it's just hard to imagine that we're already pushing early April, and before we know it, it'll be culminating in Weirs, and then hopefully on to the national championship.
For the obviously the seniors, juniors, they know about the rivalry with Western, kind of what has happened over the years. Do the freshmen, they kind of know just kind of what has happened over the years, the battles that you guys have had, just success-wise?
I love freshmen just for the sheer fact that sometimes not knowing is a lot easier than knowing. I remember all of those years that Western Washington won that national championship 7 consecutive years, and everybody said they couldn't be beat. And I think we all had the aha moment that I guess anybody can be beat. And I think we were just fortunate enough to be the first ones. A lot has changed in rowing. So blade style and the way that you're coaching technique. And what we know about Western Washington this year is that they went deep fast last year, in the sense of just missing that bid, and you know, all the things through the Krumer mill tell us that they're going to be really fast, probably about the same speed as Barry University. And so we're starting to see that depth in Division II growing pretty quickly. So when we look at the NC2A rankings that are coming out, you know, Barry won the national championship last year, and they just faced off at the Florida Intercollegiate Rowing Association regatta this weekend, and the difference between first and second was .06. Barry first, UCO Central Oklahoma was second, and we really generally believe that Western's going to be as fast as Barry, and so I think it's important to see them early on in the season before it's too late, but now April 9th almost seems too late as it is. But the training has been really good. I think the kids are super optimistic, and I think the freshmen really have no clue. And, you know, we didn't take the freshmen to San Diego, and I think had they gone to San Diego, I think that could have probably been a pretty overwhelming experience for them. As it is, I think 8 lanes across, that all of that noise and mayhem of that kind of racing, I think will at least get them prepared for the Wary Championships coming up at the end of the month.
Very good. Brian?
Thank you.